hour breaking news from the U.S. Supreme Court. The justices have issued rulings on two cases of high interest here in our area. And joining us now is Schiff Berman, law professor from the George Washington University Law School. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Happy to be here.
Let's start with the case involving a victory for parents of students in Montgomery County schools. The High Court ruled parents have the right to opt their children out of these lessons. What's your reaction?
Well, I'm concerned that it's going to be really hard to implement this decision in public schools all over the country, because you could imagine parents from various different religious perspectives objecting to various parts of the curriculum, including things like evolution or science generally, or any given lecture or lesson. So it seems odd if parents could request that students go in and out of class at various times during the day, and how that's going to be administered within public schools seems like it's going to be quite a nightmare.
So what do you suspect are the next steps? Do you think there are more legal challenges on this?
Well, I think first of all, it may mean that public schools will shy away from anything that could raise any objection by anyone. Though, as I just said, I think that may be hard, because even just basic science may be objectionable to some people or some parents. But they certainly will shy away from anything they think is going to raise an objection, and that may have a tremendous impact on the scope of public education in the country.
Let's move now to another ruling today. The Supreme Court leaving the future of birthright citizenship, the ban unclear. Break down exactly what today's ruling says and what it leaves out.
It's really complicated, so I'll try to explain it as best I can. So first, it does not rule on the constitutionality of the executive order, which most commentators believe is almost certainly going to be ruled to be unconstitutional because it violates the express wording and history of the 14th Amendment Citizenship Clause. But the court left that aside and addressed only the question of whether courts can issue injunctions that block the government with regard to parties who are not present before the court. So usually when I sue you and I win, you owe me money, you have to do something with regard to me, but not with regard to every other possible plaintiff that's in the world, even those who are similarly situated. The problem is that when we're talking about government, how does that work? Does every individual need to sue the government about the exact same government action over and over and over and over again because it doesn't apply beyond the particular person who's suing? So that's now open-ended because the court says that an injunction can only affect the parties before the court, at least absent an administrative agency decision. But the other thing that's confusing about this decision is it explicitly exempts what's called the Administrative Procedure Act, which gives courts the power to set aside government agency action that's contrary to law. And so as soon as Trump's executive order gets implemented by an agency, then presumably that could be challenged on a nationwide basis using the Administrative Procedure Act, and that wouldn't be covered by today's decision. So it's really confusing, and we'll have to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I mean, if you're confused and you have the legal chops, you can imagine the rest of us. But thank you for explaining that. That does help make more sense of it. In one of the dissents, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, she noted in her dissent on the ruling of nationwide injunctions, she called the decision a, quote, existential threat to the rule of law. What do today's, I guess more broadly speaking, what do today's decisions mean when it comes to executive authority and presidential power?
Well, I think the big problem with this decision is that it's essentially a ticket for the government to continue to do something that is unlawful, that a court might have determined is unlawful with regard to 1 or 2 or 5 citizens. It allows the government to continue to do that unlawful thing with regard to every other citizen in the country until they sue, or until their states sue, or something like that, which creates, first of all, a patchwork where laws are unconstitutional with regard to some people but not others. But it also allows the government to string along people with regard to, in this case, an executive order that almost certainly is unconstitutional, and be able to implement it in bits and pieces all over the country, at least until the case works its way up to the U.S. Supreme Court, which sometimes takes a year or 2.
Yeah, so then you're left with a patchwork of laws that vary depending on the jurisdiction.
And essentially a get out of jail free card for the government to continue doing something that's unconstitutional, that a court has ruled is unconstitutional, with regard to other people throughout the country. And that seems quite problematic from the point of view of the rule of law, and I think that's what Justice Jackson was talking about.
Paul Berman, thank you so much for joining me today and breaking that all down for us.
Happy to be here.